You mentioned there Dan Burn. That leads us on to the other questionable
Correct.
position, left back. Will it be Matt Targett against his old club, or will it be Dan Burn? We've seen a heck of a lot of Matt Targett this pre-season. He's split opinion. Some don't feel he's good enough. Some feel he hasn't performed all that well during the summer. Really interesting, Eddie Howe's given him minutes to kind of, I think, fight his case. Basically, I think it will be Dan Burn. I, I, I can't see it being any other than Dan Burn. I do think it's a close thing. I don't think it's a guaranteed cert that Eddie Howe's already picked Dan Burn, but I do think he'll end up going Dan Burn from the start against Villa.
Yeah, so do I. I don't think it matters that it's against Villa, Target's old club, because I don't think Eddie Howe ever walks down the sentimental side of the
No, he
street.
doesn't care.
I don't think he ever contemplates anything like that. So that will not come into it. I mean, the first thing you say, and I know there was an injury involved last season, but Target's a natural left back who was available all last season, and Byrne played left back for 2/3 of the season. Target's done okay since he come to Newcastle. He's not one of the greatest signings we've made in this era, and that is very difficult to be when you think of all the sorts of the players that we have brought in. It is difficult, but I think that Eddie, by nature, sticks with the tried and trusted until they let him down or they let themselves down, and then he'll try Plan B. I think he will go with Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt Targett, if he gives himself a good account this week, there's a chance that he could persuade Eddie Howe to go with him instead of Dan Burn, but it's going to be a tough test for him. I can't see them bringing in another left back now. I know a lot of people feel like it should still happen, but I think they'll look elsewhere. I think a youngish centre back is probably next on the agenda, and then maybe in January or next summer they look to add another left back. But yeah, I think it'll be Dan Burn. Just going back actually to the left back situation, you mentioned before Musa Darby's now an Aston Villa player, so he'll play out on the right. So therefore, it is Dan Burn and Matt Targett who's going to have to keep him quiet. Again, on paper, you would think opposition teams would target Burn. They would say to the pacey winger, "Go at him," but Burn proved last season that he can handle a bit of pace about him. You look at what the chat.
Yes, I sorry to interrupt, Randall.
Well,
I think he can't handle pace, but he's clever. He's clever
yes,
at handling pace, and Newcastle took in players around him. They're clever tactically. Newcastle as well. They don't leave him on his own. They double up. There's if the winger gets past, and this included Saka, who's probably as good as you can get in the Premier League last season when he was on Blob. They're very clever. He's a shrewd player, Burn. If exposed, he'll not catch them on the way back. Never mind on when they're making the first one. But they don't. He doesn't leave himself exposed too often. And when he does, there's always somebody behind him, or somebody's dropped back, yeah, or Longstaff's come across, so there's always cover there, and that's how we've got away with that situation. In an ideal world, I would like us to buy a left back as well as a centre half before September the 1st, and that is something that has to be addressed by this club, because if we're talking about winning a trophy, which would be a domestic one. And let me get this right as well. I've heard some Newcastle fans, some of them are not apprehensive, but realistic is a better word, about what we can achieve this season. And then others saying, let's go out and try to win the Champions League and let's go out and try to do that. I mean, we have got to be realistic about this. It is unfair on Eddie Howe and the players, etc., to think we're going to win one of the domestic cups, we're going to win the Champions League or get to the semi-final, and we're going to be in the top four automatically again. It is not as simple as that, and it's more difficult with the squad we've got that's playing catch up. And by the way, if you think how long it took Manchester City to win the Champions League, and they've had a terrific squad, and they've won about 5 of the last 6 Premier League titles. So, some of the things I've heard some of the fans say, I love the optimism. I love that we ought to be uh, progressive and not afraid. But I also think that we've got to keep a sense of proportion here. It's like automatically this season, we're definitely going to win some silverware, and it may well be the Champions League. Now, come on, give the team and give Eddie a realistic chance. Don't sort of go into the season with that thought and be disappointed when we finish fourth and we get out the group stage, but we don't go too much further. It's 20 years we've waited for this. Let's keep a sense of proportion while being optimistic and while believing that things can happen. Don't get yourself in a situation where we're going to get in the right tizzy and say that, well, this has been hugely disappointing. We've just reached the knockout stages of the Champions League. We got to the semi-final of one of the domestic cups and we finished fifth. What a disastrous season that's been. Don't don't do that, because the club deserve a lot more than that, and they've made a run for their own back by coming so far so quickly. But it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a terrific season, and you know what? We won't let ourselves down. But let's keep our ankles tied firmly to the bedpost.
Nice sort of be sitting here and asking these questions with just a few days to go to the kickoff, and asking them and not being worried about why we're asking them. We're asking them because you have players in form, and that is a brilliant position to be in. Now, people are well aware my choice is Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, and Elliot Anderson. John, what are you picking?
That was my midfield three without a shadow of doubt. Again, the weekend muddied the waters just a tiny bit by the fact that Sean Longstaff started and got 70 minutes out of him. Now, Sean Longstaff is well loved by Eddie Howe, um, and Newcastle, without Sean Longstaff, didn't look half the side towards the end of last season than when he was in the side. Um, but of course, there's been the development of Elliot Anderson way beyond what we possibly expected at this stage. That has happened since that. But again, you look at what Eddie might want to do, and if he sticks with tried and trusted, he'll go with Longstaff. If he thinks Longstaff can stiffen Newcastle's underbelly alongside Joe Linton against the power play of Villa, there might be a temptation to do that. I know that if Elliot Anderson doesn't start on Saturday, he will have every reason to be very, very disappointed indeed, because he couldn't have done more than he's done pre-season. He's added goals to his game, and we've talked about positions that need goal scorers like what Barnes does and what Gordon doesn't do, and he's brought goals to the table. There's no question about that. So he deserves a chance. Willock's out, as we already know. So it's probably going to be a choice between Anderson and Longstaff. You've noticed that we haven't neither of us put Tonali in there, and I think he is one of the great worksmith, one of the great talents of midfield. I'm not certain yet that he's got the pace of the Premier League, the pace of the English game hasn't picked up on it yet, and he may need the sort of introduction that come to Bruno, that came to Botman, that came to Isaac after Liverpool debut, etc., which is sit and watch it, son, which came to Gordon last season. Watch it and get up the pace and do the job. He will be a good player. I don't think he's ready. Barnes might well be ready because he knows the Premier League, but I don't think Tonali is. You know, going off right at a tangent, and I don't know if I dare mention this because it's going to make me very unpopular, but I want to see the old Bruno. I want to see the Bruno of the first half of his first season here. He's looked a little off the pace, dare I suggest a little sloppy at times, a little casual at times, by the sky high standards that he's set. And I have not lost faith in him, and I think he's a terrific player, and you don't get in the Brazilian side quite regularly unless you are. But I want to see that if there's only a 5% drop, He's still beyond most midfielders, but I just want to see him get back to that. There has been just that little sluggishness come into play, almost as if he wasn't quite fit. Since he had the troubles at the end of last season and had to play through injuries at the end of last season, he hasn't quite picked up yet to what he was prior to that. I'm not suggesting for 1 second he shouldn't play on Saturday. Of course he should. His name should be one of the first on the team sheet. But I'll be watching him closely. Let's see the old Bruno get back to doing what you do well.